Um, this is the first time Josh and I have sat down to have any kind of conversation ever. And so far it's going pretty well, I must say.
Yeah, yeah, no issues yet. So.
Pretty fruitful conversation so far. But yeah, mostly because like every time you come here, you're here to like work on stuff with Franco. And then like I'll see you at parties, but that's with like 20 plus
You're not
people,
having a
you know?
conversation at a party
Yeah,
usually.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming to sit down and talk to me. I love your music, dude.
Thank
It's
you.
really great.
I
This
do my
he's a
best.
producer, producer musician, right? Is what you would
Yeah,
call yourself.
probably the best way to say it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're bridge, the bridge. I think it's a the bridge or bridge,
The bridge. Yeah.
the bridge. I actually listen to that all the time.
Yeah.
Like it's in my playlist. It's in my constant rotation.
Word.
Um, because I don't know what it is about that track specifically, but it feels so. Um, it feels like home when I listen to it. Like it
Mhm.
feels like something so recognizable that's very easy to connect to. I actually wrote a little bit to it as well. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I just write bars to that track and then like I'll put it in other places, but like that's a really fun one for me to write to. So just thought I'd let you know that,
Wow,
man.
that's incredible,
Yeah.
honestly. Fun fact: I originally, when I wrote that, the idea was that Franco was going to do a feature on it.
Really?
Um,
What?
and
That's
no offense to
crazy.
Franco, I'm so happy that it didn't go that way. So
That's actually wild.
yeah,
I can hear somebody on it. Um I don't think it would have been a Franco track
no,
at this point because now we know what his sound is.
I do have some verses that he did on it though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really? Oh, that's so
no
wild.
one's ever gonna see those.
That's
Well, I can show them to you, but no one else is gonna
oh,
see
I
those.
would love to see those.
Yeah.
um but yeah, dude, that's actually where did that song like how did that song what's the origination? Like I don't even know if that's a word.
Yeah,
Where did
no.
that originate?
So I mean, I have a very boring, I would say, writing process. As like a demo. Um,
Okay.
I usually sitting down is the hardest part of the entire thing. When I can finally sit down and like kind of tap into the ether, I usually start with like a drum programming thing. So like
Okay.
just like a loop, like a 4 bar something,
Nice.
and then just like put either like a piano or a Rhodes,
Yeah.
like really simple patch on, and
Yeah.
just like vibe on it for like 10 minutes or
Gotcha.
so.
Hmm.
And usually in that period, I've been playing keyboards for a long time, so I'm able
Yeah.
to find some kind of sounds, and my ear kind
Hmm.
of leads the way.
Hmm.
And once I have those two things, usually, that's where kind of like the intellect takes over, and I just like use my producer brain to fill in the gaps.
That's so sick. Yeah. See the pockets and like just
Yeah,
placing things and
and
like
that's when like after that, it's like a demo basically.
yeah.
So that one specifically, how it became like the bridge, because the original demo I didn't have any saxophone in it.
Oh,
There's a lot of things missing from it.
saxophones are the best part, dude.
Yeah, that's what everyone's, and that was like a very like cathartic thing to write and
Yeah.
like record in the studio, to be honest.
Yeah.
The idea was that entire record was kind of about like finding my grounding
Mm.
in different pockets of the city during the pandemic, basically.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
and the bridge specifically was so I was working like a very like blue collar job. I was working for like an assembly line at the time.
Jeez, what?
It was like a music gear company, so it was
Oh,
still
okay,
like,
okay,
yeah.
okay, okay.
But it was like first when things started to open up, that was like one of the first things that
Yeah.
opened up was like manufacturing. So I was, like commuting in,
That's wild.
when it was like still very terrifying to just
go
like
to
exist in
work.
the city.
Jeez,
And I
dude.
was like, fuck, I'm not taking the subway.
Yeah, yeah, of course not.
So I started riding my bike to work, and I
Wow.
was riding over the Williamsburg Bridge specifically. And that routine was like
Mm.
doing something to like I was so fucking happy during that time. Is it cool if am
Wow.
I
Oh
cool
yeah,
cursing? Okay, yeah.
yeah.
All
I
right,
started the
I swear
bar.
like a sailor. I'm
No,
sorry. If
you're
that,
good, dude.
um,
So it was changing you were happy.
yeah. I mean,
Wow.
it's like it's a thing where like I feel disgusting and sweaty right now just because of the humidity. But like
Yeah.
when you bike over a bridge like that and you're sweaty, you're like, I worked for this. Like this was so, like I don't know. It was a habit that
Yeah.
like just did a lot of good for my
Mm.
brain.
I feel that.
After
Yeah.
like 3 months of like everybody's like own like personal hell basically.
Yeah. I feel you. Wow.
And there's also, to like bring it kind of full circle,
Mm-hmm.
I was
Circle.
obsessed with this record called The Bridge in college. It's a Sonny Rollins record. He's like a jazz
Ooh.
saxophonist.
Yeah.
And it's the reason he made that record is because he took a 2-year hiatus to work on his music, and he practiced every day on the Williamsburg Bridge. So like,
What? That's
yeah,
crazy.
so I was
So
like,
great.
this, there's an energy
What?
here. There's something else
Yeah.
like beyond my comprehension
Oh my
happening here.
God.
And that's like kind of what inspired it to bring it to what it is
Dude,
now.
that's like
Yeah.
so much. I thought you were just gonna say, yeah, I just made it. But that's like so much. That story is incredible,
Yeah.
dude. What? That is so cool. So you really were tapping into like some kind of like previous, just like he just like made a realm there, you know, and you just so happen
Yeah.
to be passing by that realm every single day and absorbing that energy.
I'm a big like purveyor of like the collective unconscious. I think we're all
Yes,
just like vessels that are
sir.
tapping in.
Yes.
And that like it was just a little bit too on the nose for me to not be
Yeah.
like there's something here.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Laura was the one before you. We had on the podcast, and we were talking about that same vibe where like there's the interconnectedness of everything. Like everything is just like
Yeah.
there's a system to it all. Like we're all just like everybody has a root in the ground, and it all connects to each other at one point or another. And you connected with Sonny Rollins on the Williamsburg Bridge, dude,
Yeah.
and you channeled that energy, and you created such a beautiful track. I knew there was something there, man. I knew it when I listened to that song. It just feels so right, you know. It feels so right. That's beautiful. So circling, what's that concept? Where did that all come from?
Yeah, so it's another this is gonna sound a little disconnected. I was very into like anime Japanese culture
Oh,
when
dude.
yeah.
Yes.
I know that we're both like kindred weebs.
Kindred
But like,
weebs.
I definitely like I didn't like indulge too much when I was in college just because I was like very like career minded
Yeah.
and focused and all that kind of like bullshit.
Of course.
But the
Eventually.
pandemic was when I started to kind of like re-indulge myself into like anime. I think I
Same.
told you that I watched the entirety of Naruto up to
Dude.
like current Boruto, and I like read the
my
manga now.
God,
It's
it's
a
insane.
mess. But
I was just watching it the other day too, and
Yeah.
Franco's trying to watch it for the first time.
yeah,
so,
I'm excited about that.
He's trying keyword, but
Yeah.
continue.
But I've always been really interested in like Japanese culture,
Of course,
and
same.
a lot of I like love like Japanese home cooking, and like I just
Sick.
there's something about it that like I don't know, it's just like I vibe with very well.
Yeah.
And specifically there's a practice that this like one monastery does that I'm like very intrigued with. I am gonna butcher the pronunciation, but I think it's Kyogo. It translates like pretty roughly to circling the mountain.
Whoa.
And it's these like Tendai Buddhist monks basically that one of their spiritual practices is that they every day for like 5 years, I think it is, walk between like 20 and 40 miles. And there's all these like routines that go along with it, like watering plants or like blessing like shrines and that kind of thing. And it's a quest for enlightenment, really. It's like grounding yourself in this like very rigid and like hardline routine to like attain like clarity, basically.
Wow.
And I'm very fascinated with it. And also it's my like childhood barber, weirdly enough, like loaned my dad a book about it because he's like kind of like a hippie and whatnot, and it just like it made sense for his personality.
Dude.
And I read it when I was a
Really?
kid, basically. I read parts, but I don't think I read the entire thing. But they talk about like how your foot should be making contact with the earth, and like it's like literally being grounded in the truest sense of the word, where like everything you're doing is so intentional. You're just rooting yourself in your habits.
Christ, dude.
So the reason I called the album Circling is because it was about all these places in Brooklyn that I was kind of, well, in Brooklyn and other places, but like things that I was doing to ground myself during that like chaotic time, basically.
Oh my God.
The bridge being one of those things where like my bike ride was like
Yeah,
a
the
very
bridge.
grounding experience.
Eastern Parkway 2020. All those like, oh my God, it all
Yeah.
makes sense
Yeah.
now, dude. What the heck? Yeah, continue.
I mean, that's the
Holy-
gist of it, basically. That was like,
Wow.
and I was nervous about. I think I told Franco, I was like, "Am I really gonna name an album Circling when my name is Jerk? Like, in that is that what I want to do with my career? Just like flush it down the toilet?" But I was like,
Yo,
I think the people
didn't
that are
even-
interested,
I
yeah,
I never made the connection.
people have been making it, and I'm like
That's
fine with it. I think it's funny, honestly.
It is funny. It's important to be open to comedic value.
for sure,
Like you gotta allow that to permeate in your and any career you have, because you're gonna be miserable if you don't.
Absolutely, yeah,
But that's incredible.
yeah. But yeah, that was kind of the
Wow.
everything seemed to be centered around like me trying to find like grounding in my life, basically.
So that's honestly, I connect to that very deeply. It all makes sense now, like with all the locations and stuff, and like this is our like mountain. This is our like ground,
Yeah,
the ground that we live in and we walk on, and we walk on it constantly because in the city that's how you get around.
yeah.
And I think about that, dude. I come from Florida, right?
Mhm.
Like Florida, being raised there, you almost never walk anywhere. Like you'll walk around
I
Disney.
mean, my hometown's the same way.
Yeah, you'll walk
You
around Universal and
hop
stuff.
in your air conditioned car to go to the air conditioned restaurant,
Y-
like that kind of thing. Yeah,
Everything's you're never in the sun like for too long because you'll burn,
yeah.
or you think you will at least. And if you're out in the sun for a good amount of time, you're going to a beach, and then you're driving there, you're walking to the beach, you're getting in the water, and then you're walking back to your car
Hmm.
and you're driving home.
Yeah,
And you're always driving, you're never walking. And just to be disconnected in that way, you don't think about that ever.
hmm.
Nobody ever thinks about that. And it wasn't until I came here that I really felt any kind of presence in my life. Like I started to feel very present naturally, especially with the people that live here. Like meeting people who are from here, they already have that so like deeply ingrained in their personality.
Especially Brooklyn is like there's so much community here.
Yes.
Which is one thing. Like I grew up in the suburbs. It was like, and the suburbs are so isolating
Mm-hmm.
because like you have your house, your neighbor has their house, and like
Dude,
everyone's doing their own independent
the
thing.
nuclear family.
Yeah, it's like honestly depressing at this point. Like,
Yeah.
I was even talking with someone last night about like, I feel like I have like an adopted family now, like
Wow.
within this like community of like all of you,
Same.
and it's
Same.
like, there's points when I feel closer with like my adopted family than my like blood
Yeah.
family.
Same.
And like it makes you question like, did it have to be this way? Did
Mm.
like, this country have to
Mm.
develop this way?
Mm.
That there has to be other places in the world where people the value community
Yeah.
over
And I think that like there is this I was reading on a few things when it comes to just like certain theories and like ways of life and the way people see things, and somebody was talking about like the difference between like the nuclear family, which is like 5 family household, the common, where like everybody plays a very specific role, they all fulfill those roles, and that's the only thing. And then the difference between that and like how before America, before this Western culture kind of developed, it was like about raising a family in a village. Like it was about raising kids in a village, like
yeah.
having people from all walks of life there and present to make experiences more fulfilled, and
Mhm.
like learn from more people than just your parents. And that was so, I was like, wow, that's so real. Like I never, and I kind of undervalued church in that way. Like I used to go to church all the time. My parents were pastors.
Yeah.
I don't know, were you raised in like a
I
religious
was raised in like the
household?
Catholic Church. Yeah.
So like the value of a church is that it
Oh, for
offers
sure. Yeah.
community in that way. I just think they kind of go about
Yeah.
it
Maybe
in a
we could
weird
center
way
on something different.
instead of like
That.
a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. It so that was like the biggest thing. I was like, I kind of, luckily I didn't miss out on that because I did have a community of churchgoers, and it wasn't like the best scenario, but I did have a lot of people that were around me and supporting me at all times. And I just think about people who didn't have that at all, like even a little bit, like
Mhm.
whether it was good or not, like having small families like that is just, I can't, it sounds so hard. It sounds difficult, especially when you're going to school alone.
Yeah.
And then if
Yeah.
you don't make friends, like what do you do? Like, oh man.
Yeah. It's interesting. I read a book a couple of years ago
Mhm.
called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
Mm.
And there's a chapter about there was this like community in Pennsylvania that was all Italian immigrants in like the early like 20th century.
Okay.
And they were living very much like we're talking. Like there was
Yeah.
no like paved roads. They were walking to each other's
Jeez.
houses.
Yeah.
They were everyone was sharing food. Everything was like
Mhm.
very communal.
Mhm.
And they weren't necessarily like healthier, like eating wise or like exercise wise, but
Mhm.
they were all living like past 100 in like the
Jesus
beginning
Christ.
of the 1900s. And the thing that people attribute it to is like they just had this like very healthy system set up where like everybody shared their like kind of wealth in whatever way that meant. Like if someone was good at cooking, they were like one that like provided a lot of meals. Like if someone was good at like fixing furniture, like and it kind of makes you think like, you know, maybe that's how humans are supposed to be, kind of interacting, I guess.
Assisting and like helping each other out and supporting each other in any way that they can. I think we're lucky enough to be artists in that like we kind of need that to survive, because like dude, being a lonely artist in New York is like the worst. It's one of the hardest things to do, that like a human being in our society, in our culture, one of the hardest things that somebody could like live through, because it's like so isolating, especially during the winter. Do you does seasonal depression affect you at all, or do you feel that, or are you used to the cold? Like where I guess
so I grew up in Binghamton, New York, which is like 3 hours from here.
Okay.
So there's more snow than you get in New York.
You're used to it.
So I don't mind it, honestly.
Cool.
The stillness of the winter is very inspiring to me.
For me,
a fresh fallen snow when you're just like walking outside alone and there's like it's like a vacuum. That is like there's something there that is like very like mystical to me.
I feel that.
I mean when it gets to be like the real New York like brown slush, that's like a little you feel like you're trying to trudging through at that point. I wouldn't say it affects me as much as other people.
Fair.
Yeah.
I think I was just talking to someone the other day about this as well. But I was mentioning, or it was Christine, and I was talking about how seasonal depression kind of affects a lot of people. And she was like, well, yeah, I mean, if you're not from New York, probably, like if you're not from the North, like you don't have it normally your whole life. It's kind of a thing. And I'm like, it's like, damn, that's true. Like I'm from Florida, and we never have snow. There's never a time where we can't go outside.
That's wild to me, honestly.
Yeah, it's insane. And I mean, I understand why people move there, for sure, because of that. Like, that's really clutch. Like, no snow, dude. Like, it's just like the lowest you get is like 50s, 60s. And it's brick, but you can still function. You can still go outside and do things.
50 and 60 compared to like 20.
I mean, I've been in a pool 50, 60 degree weather. Like, at night. Like, it's not that hard. It's not that bad. But yeah, dude, I left my phone all the way over there.
No, you're good.
So excuse me, guys. Excuse me. Here we go. All right, we're back. So yeah, dude, you had the opportunity. Well, actually, let's track it back just a little bit more. How were you introduced to this group of people? What happened? Like where and why?
Honestly, every time I tell this story, it feels like a little bit crazy that this happened this way. This was 2019 or so. I'm playing probably 3 to 5 shows a month for Jerk. Jeez. Like, my idea was like, I'm gonna really work out this project. It was very like unfleshed out at that moment. I had my 3 EPs out and I was working on a full length, but I was like, I just need to like get out there and kind of pound the pavement and figure out what I want this to be for myself. So I was like, and those shows are crazy to think about because I was playing like demos for people and like things that like didn't make it out into the world. But one I did was at the Museum of Chinese in America in Soho. Ooh. And Kayla, Franco's former manager, was doing sound for the show. And she was just playing some music off of her phone before, and she played a song by my favorite rapper, Odyssey. Okay. And she's from like the DMV area, and that's where he's from too. So there was like a kindred thing there. And I was like, okay, like this is cool. But then she played this song that I was like obsessed with in high school by the rapper Chitty Bang. I don't know if you're familiar. That was called Opposite of Adults. It sampled Kids by MGMT. And I was like geeking a little bit. I was like, I haven't heard this song in like 10 years. Maybe. So I like went over. I'm like, yo, what? How are you? Like my name is.
Of course.
And we like kind of chatted for a second before the show. And then she saw my set and was like very interested in what I did. Of
course.
And she's just like she's a cool person. She's very like upfront, and that was like very dope. And she's just like, here, like let me give you my number. Like I wanna like introduce you to some people. She's like, actually, like one of the people I'm like managing was like looking for a saxophone solo on something, and I think she was referring to Franco, which is like really funny
hilarious.
now. But I don't even think she formally introduced. She sent me his like phone number at one point, but I think after that I followed Franco on Instagram, and then Franco followed me back. And I think we might have like DM'd like once or twice, being like, "Yo, your shit is crazy," kind of a thing. And that was really the extent of it.
Yeah.
So that was like August. Fast forward to November was when my first record, Pressing On, came out.
Yeah.
So that was my first record through the label I've worked with, Deep Matter.
Yes.
And Tom Pickford, the person that runs Deep Matter, was in New York on like a little trip for that. One of the other artists, Abby the Nomad, was playing
he's
at
great.
He's a killer.
He's awesome.
Where was he playing? Rough Trade, the record store in Williamsburg. And I think there were some other meetings he had to do. The distributor we had at the time had an office in New York, so I think he was meeting with them, and there were some other things. So it was like a good trip for like business and leisure kind of a thing. And we were just like kicking it then, because I hadn't met him before then. We were just like only talked over the phone.
That's so cool.
And we had a free day together. And I was like, we should go to Dumbo. It's like a cool area.
It's like a sick area actually.
In Brooklyn. Yeah, like you can see the bridge.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's meet at BRC.
Oh my God!
No, that's why it's so crazy. So I thought I recognized Franco because I knew he worked a coffee job.
Yeah.
But he was doing something else, kind of like behind the scenes when I was there ordering my cup. But I was sitting down, and just like chilling, waiting for Tom to get there, and then Tom comes up and he's wearing a Deep Matter hoodie.
Oh my God! Wait, Franco too? Yes. Oh my God!
And Franco's like, "Yeah, do you like know about Deep Matter?" He's like, "Yeah, I like run Deep Matter." And Franco's like geeking out, and Franco's like, "Oh yeah, like I you must have not seen me." He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, I'm like acquaintances with Jerk." He's like, "Oh, you mean him?" And he like pointed over at me. And then Franco just like took a 10, I think, with no permission, and just came over.
He had to. There's no way he.
It was and we were just like kind of geeking for a minute. And then he left, and Tom was like, "Are you guys like close?" And I'm like, "That's the first time I met him." But there was immediately like an energy there that I was like, we were like kind of, this was meant to happen. No. This is like way too specific of a way this happened.
Also with him, dude, it's like he's like such a soul. He's like such a connected person. Like he'll meet anybody and be super excited to like, if he knows anything about you, to meet him in person is like one of the that's like one of Franco's staples, is like your first interaction with him is like always memorable.
And it was like so like you can't help but think that like there was something beyond that was kind of like forcing hands in that way.
Yes.
Where like, how could something this specific happen? Like
the odds of that. There's a BRC literally like 2 blocks away. You guys could have been to that one.
True.
And he would not have been there.
Yeah.
Bro.
And then we just like I hit him up when we kicked it like a month later or so.
Yeah.
And you know, that's here we are now. We actually the first beat I made for him was what like ended up becoming Kid with a Dream.
Oh my God, Kid with a Dream,
which is fucking crazy.
Dude, which at this point, when this is being released, comes out in a few days.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very excited for that. It's one of my favorite songs ever. I listen to that song pretty often. Because I have it on my phone, because I'm lucky like that. And it's honestly because it comes from such a deep place, and it comes from such a time in our lives. Like that song, the original song, was something we listened to pretty often, because that was when he was first making music. He had a bunch of other songs similar to that have the same energy, and when I listen to them, it always brings me back to when we were first like finding our place here.
And I think we were all just in a similar position in life at that time, where we're all working these like full-time jobs, dude, like dogging it
full-time,
and like
real full-time,
because that was all the music we wrote then was about like feeling like dead inside, basically, just like feeling like we're like killing our inner selves a little bit. And that was like just the best one, really.
It's real. And what other song was there that you guys? Is there another song that you guys remade? Or?
We've worked on and off on, I don't know why.
Yeah.
Because he didn't even record it at that point. When we first met, he hadn't even recorded it. He's had the idea. He literally sang it on my couch into like a mic he was holding, and I just like wrote a beat that day. And there were like, that was the one that there were so many revisions. I was still kind of coming into my own as a producer then.
True.
So I had like too many fucking ideas. But it was like, it's always been a thing where like there's no hard feelings between us.
Yeah.
You can be like, no, I don't fuck with this, and it's
Yeah,
like, all right,
yeah.
we'll try something else.
Which is great. I think that's incredibly vital in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we made a track yesterday. We worked on it for like maybe like 30 minutes, me and Franco, and then we were like, all right, fuck this. Let's go. Let's move. You
Yeah.
want to do a new one? Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Fuck this one. And we were like, let's just send it to someone we know who could have fun with it.
Yeah.
Which is, we actually were like, yeah, Brandon would go crazy on this.
Yeah. Word.
And we were like, yeah, let's just send it to him and work on a new one. And that brings me to Glooms. Like you actually performed with him, a part of his band, and that was his first time with like a full band. And to get someone with your musicianship, your skill, your talent on the keys and the sax, was really cool to see, man. Because at that point, you were definitely like friends, like you were definitely in the group, you know. You had a few songs with Franco already. We already hung out, like we did a music video, like you were there already. But then I feel like that was like the moment where it was like, this guy's here, you know, like he's a part of this shit for real now,
for sure. Yeah.
Which was like super cool. How was that process like? What was it like working with someone who was doing it for the first time, you know?
So I found out later that he was like, Glooms was like a little hesitant to ask me.
Yeah, of course.
Which isn't something that I've just gone through in my life. People think that I'm like a little more official than I fucking am. Like I don't know. I mean, I have a degree in music. I did the thing, but like I tried playing in wedding bands. I tried doing corporate gigs. I fucking hated it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make music. Yeah. I'm trying to make music with
so
people.
Cool. I love that. I think it's just I think in my opinion that's just a testament to your musicianship and your actual music that's out. But yeah, continue. I understand.
But yeah, there's like that is always hanging in the air. So I'm trying to figure out how to kind of dismantle it to some extent.
Yes, of course.
And my bio isn't doing me any favors because I still put all that shit in there. But like, you know, that's another story.
Dude, bro, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. But he was just talking about how he was having some trouble with it. I'm like, if you want any help, man, like just let me know. Like I love musical directing for people, which is kind of the role I took in that group.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, if you're like open to it, I'd like love to have you along. Meanwhile, he like wanted to ask me before.
And he was just like, oh my god, yes.
So that just was a lesson to me of like, oh, like volunteer yourself sometimes. And
yes, 100%.
Yeah. And it was definitely like, I don't want to say it was like rough. He knew all the ideas that he wanted.
Yeah, for sure.
But I was someone kind of in the unique position where I play everything. Yeah. So I can communicate those ideas in plain terms for everybody on their own terms rather. You're kind of like a liaison in the group when you're taking like conceptual ideas and turning them into like concrete musical ideas. Yes. That's like kind of the role of like a music director. Yeah. And besides that, you know, like I have a pretty good ear. I was like figuring out, because he's totally by ear. So he's just like hitting notes and like making chords that are crazy. But he doesn't know what they are. Yeah. So like that song, Too Bad for Me.
Yeah.
The end of it is like a really weird chord progression. And I just had to like sit down with headphones for a minute, but then I figured it out. And it just, that rehearsal was the first one where it like locked in all of a sudden. And I wrote a bass line for Joe to play, and I kind of told Franco like a groove to play. And he was like, this, like, something happened tonight. Like, this is, like, really special. I think there's a video on his Instagram of that rehearsal, actually. But,
so sick.
But, yeah, I basically just was kind of, like, trying to help him realize his vision to some extent.
And it worked out so well.
Yeah, and it was just a lot of fun. I love his music. I love him. Yeah.
Dude, his music is so incredibly unique.
Yeah.
I've consistently, every time I hear another track, I'm like, where did this come from? Like, it's the same feeling I get with Franco as well. It's like there's just like a spontaneity to it, and it's very just instinctual. Like it's almost all instinct, because they don't have like music theory backgrounds, and like they don't have all of the technical knowledge. So everything that they do is very just like, well, this sounds good to me, you know? And I think there's something so beautiful about that when it comes to them. And they both carry that same energy, and I think that's also why they work so well together.
Yeah.
Like their music together, I need a joint album from them both.
They're writing this like really important line, I think, that they're naturally very talented people.
Yeah.
There's something like on a DNA level that, you know, they have very nice voices. Their instruments are really good. Franco knows he knows some music theory.
Yeah.
He plays keyboard. He knows chords.
Which he learned while he was here, to be honest. Like, he
um,
really got into the thick of it.
And Gloom's is coming more from like, he's like a beat maker more so.
Yeah.
Or he'll drop
he is.
things in and then just like
Dude,
hit keys in the keyboard and come up with these like crazy which like he's opening my mind up, and I was
taught
like,
me some wild shit,
yeah. So having music theory knowledge can be a good thing. It can also cloud you though. They are riding this fine line where they know enough. They know a good amount, and they both want to learn more. They're always asking me like a ton of questions, and I love it. But they don't let that cloud their judgment, and they're still so tapped into themselves and into like the ether that those like things combined just like allow them to really operate in this like space.
I want to get into your history in music, so like your upbringing with that. First off, let me. So your history in music. So you have a degree for music right? So what specifically? I guess just talk about like how did it start? Where did it end? Where's the middle? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Story.
So I got my first guitar when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
So my dad played guitar when I was growing up.
Okay, sick.
He had nice guitars. He wouldn't let me play them. He'd let me play. He had this one that was made by Charvel. It was like an 80s like shredder guitar, like one of those really pointy ones. He got rid of it. And I was like, why? That was so cool that we had that.
Guitar, man.
That was the only one they let me play. But I got my own. My grandfather bought me one from literally like Toys R Us. It was like a first act guitar. And I think I got a couple books and was just like, I was into everything. I loved like punk music. I loved like all kinds of rock. And I was, you know, growing up hearing like that era of like hip hop and R&B on the radio, which like I didn't know how I would fit into that yet, but it was like, you know, the Ushers, the T-Pains, the
Neo
Akons.
was my favorite, dude.
Yeah, like
Neo was my jam.
Which I'm like looking back on that stuff and I'm like, there's so much brilliant shit. Like thinking about T-Pain now, I'm like,
oh my god, a genius.
How did like such an innovator happen there and just like get totally reduced to like auto-tune? That's another conversation that we don't have to.
That's
like,
so completely different. You watch his Twitch streams?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, he's great. Continue.
So yeah, I started guitar when I was 8, learning like rock songs for the most part. Some like pop songs, some like older kind of stuff. I was just into everything. I wanted to just learn music. I started playing saxophone when I was 10 because I was in the 4th grade, and like the New York State band system usually start in 4th grade. And got like very into that.
Wow.
And I just had a good band director that like really took an interest in me. And I had a couple friends that were also playing the saxophone that ended up quitting like a year or two later. we would literally we would eat our lunch in about 10 minutes, and we get to go to the band room for the last 20 minutes of lunch and just like practice. And it was just fun. We'd play duets, we'd play other things. I was definitely the most like deep in it, I would say. And my dad, he used to get like all these like guitar player magazines, and he got one that had a transcription of a John Coltrane solo on the song called Blue Train, and he just ripped it out and gave it to me. And I brought it into my band director. Like, can you show me how to play this? And like, no, she fucking could not. Like, I was a 10-year-old that had played the instrument for like 3 months. Like, so that was like, but she's like, you want to just listen to it? And I was like, yeah, I would love to. And she put it on, and it was just like the mind expanding me with like,
my god,
hearing like Coltrane, like even though I'm like a little bit less in the jazz sphere than I was like in college and whatnot, still like just one of the most inspiring figures and artists that I've been exposed to. And I can like put myself in the room when I heard that. It was such a powerful moment.
Changed everything.
So yeah, I was very obsessed with music moving forward. I think it was the next year when I was in 5th grade. My brother also makes music. He's an engineer. He's worked on some stuff. He worked on my last record, some Cosmic Shift. He like engineered that.
Oh, sick. Oh, dude, that's insane. That's so good.
But we were both like into it kind of independently. We weren't doing much stuff together.
Yeah.
But somehow we found my dad had this like 4-track cassette deck machine. So you could like record to one track and then like plug into the next track and record like
oh my god,
so you could make these tracks.
Yeah.
So we were just like
dude, we need
like
that.
producing music basically.
Dude.
And I was like writing these like goofy little songs. I found a CD of them actually that I need to unearth. It's very embarrassing, but I was like I was 11, so it's like kind of it's like cute almost.
We need that. We need it.
So that was my first foray. I learned how to play the drums a little. I learned how to play everything enough that I could make a song.
Yeah.
So I'd play a little bit of drums, I'd play a little bit like acoustic guitar, I'd play a little bass, and I would sing in my like cracky little fucking 10-year-old, 11-year-old voice. Um, yeah, and that was definitely like a transitional moment and just
Yeah.
like my identity a little bit
Mm-hmm.
where, in elementary school, I feel like everyone usually has some friends. It's
For
like
sure.
it's
Yeah.
it's not difficult to make friends at that
No.
point. There's just like very few social
'Cause everybody
barriers.
wants to.
Unless
All
you're
the
like,
kids want to.
and I should say for like neurotypical people.
True.
If it like,
Yes, of course.
otherwise like,
valid. Yes.
so I was like blessed in that way.
Mhm.
But I like going into middle school was kind of a transition for me. Where I just was like, I wasn't feeling totally aligned with anybody anymore. So I ended up, I had a couple friends. I had 2 or 3 friends, but it wasn't anything like very deep, I would say. We would hang out during school kind of thing, but after school I probably didn't see them. And I spent a lot of time alone, but that just transitioned into me every day going home from school, going into my basement and making music, and learning all the instruments that I currently play, like, and everything. I was just intrigued. I just wanted to learn. I didn't know a single professional musician. I just knew that they existed, and I was like, that'd be fucking dope if I could do that.
Really fun. Yeah.
And I didn't know what pathway would lead me there, but I was like, let me just learn everything.
Wow.
So middle school was definitely like my like punk, hardcore metal phase. I've kind of gotten back into recently, to be honest.
Yeah.
But, that was
great.
Learning guitar, learning bass, learning the drums, doing a little screamo, all that kind of good stuff.
Oh hell yeah, dude.
You do.
I would pay so much money to see you do screamo.
Oh
dude.
my god. My voice has gotten very weak over the past couple of years, so I don't think I could do it anymore. But
Oh man.
and I would literally, so I had a couple of friends that like did play instruments sort of.
Yeah.
But I was always kind of like a little bit more invested in everything.
Yeah, of course.
So what I would do if I wanted to like jam on a song is I would learn each part and teach each part to other people. So I would learn the drum part to like when I can remember, I used to love the song Crush 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 by Paramore.
Yeah. Oh my god, Paramore is.
So I like learned all the guitar parts, learned the bass line, learned the drums, and like taught them to people. Just so I could have the satisfaction of like being able to play it.
Just to be like, all right, everybody, let's do it. Dude, it's start of your music director.
That was like middle school. When I was a freshman in high school. Yeah. So I don't mean to like just go off on this, but yeah, that's just
no. I mean, I wanted to hear it all. We want to hear it all.
I did have a couple like closer friends towards the end of middle school.
Yeah.
And going into high school, those were kind of the friends that I stuck with. There's about like 3 or 4 people to the end of high school. And one of their dads was like a software guy, and he pirated FL Studio for me.
Oh, let's go.
So,
those are the people that deserve like
Oh,
Nobel
man.
Peace Prizes and stuff. Like, I love those guys.
And I got very into like EDM music that year. My like freshman year, I was really into like,
Dude,
and that was like when like
really
dubstep
ran
was
the-
like popping off.
Oh, dubstep.
And like it was like
That's
looking back, it was
legendary.
like so cringe, but like
Oh, but in the moment,
yeah,
there was nothing like it. Just getting your ears blown out by just
Thinking
insane
about-
amounts of bass.
what was like a couple songs that I've
Bass
been like
boosted everything.
like Dead Mouse was really popping
Yeah.
out at that point,
Mhm.
and there was one
Mhm.
specific Dead Mouse
Skrillex.
song, Skrillex too. But those people were all like they had these like very powerful songs. Honestly, they kind of set the
Yeah.
tone for production moving forward.
For sure.
But I was just making that kind of music alone. So like kind of the same thing throughout that I'm just like in my bass, I'm making music, and just the means changed a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was also at the same time I was dating a person that was kind of in like the local like pop punk scene.
Sick.
She would do like acoustic sets at shows, and they were all like they would rent like an American Legion hall, and like it was like $10 a ticket or something.
Yeah.
Like 5 bands.
I love that.
On like a borrowed PA system. It was like the most DIY that you can get. So I was going to those and really into like pop punk hardcore music, and then on my own time I was making a lot of like EDM electronic music.
Yeah.
So kind of like serving a lot of different things that I was interested in. As it goes, broke up with the girl. Was broken up with by the girl. And like that kind of ended my days of going to shows.
Feel you.
Unfortunately.
1000%.
But it was
Sucks, man.
to some extent like I just kind of followed my whims during that time, and I had an opportunity to kind kind of get more invested in the local jazz scene when I was like about 15, 16 years old.
Okay.
So there's this thing in New York. I don't know if it exists in other states. It probably does. There's like all county and all state like
Yeah.
band, orchestra, jazz band.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I got in.
I wasn't a part of it, but I heard a lot about All-State Choir. There was like choir because I used to be in choir. So yeah, I know about the competitions. Yeah.
And I just like auditioned for the all county jazz band on guitar.
Oh,
and I got in, and it was like legit like a very powerful experience. Like kind of up there with like hearing Train for the first time was getting to be around like like-minded people that I didn't know. And there was this piano player who's now like a professional organist, like concert organist.
Jesus Christ.
But he was like a savant basically.
Yeah.
He was like this like he had perfect pitch, so he could just hear something and play it. Prodigy, yeah, exactly. I was sitting right next to him, guitar and piano next to each other in a big band. So like we were just like freaking out about each other, kind of. Where
That's so cool.
He was just in. I had like a unique perspective where I like knew enough about jazz that I could noodle, but I just like loved like rock and experimental music. So I was like using pedals and shit, and he thought it was like amazing.
Dude, that's so cool.
So we were just kind of bonding. The guy that conducted it was this like saxophonist from Rochester, New York, who was just like the cool, like when you imagine like 50-year-old guy that has a career in jazz, like this is the guy you would imagine.
That's so sick.
He's like, hey man, how we doing, guy? Like he just has this like kind of like demeanor that's like I wasn't exposed to it. Like,
dude, that's perfect. Yeah,
but it's like
I can already envision him.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, the kind of adult that you don't see in like your parents and your parents' friends, kind of like the first time you meet like a cool adult, you're like, oh
you're
man,
like, oh, dude, you're awesome.
Like,
I want to be like you.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was kind of the start of like going into a bit of a jazz hole. So I did that ensemble every year throughout the rest of high school. I was in this group called Teen Jazz Project. That was like a community-based jazz orchestra, playing saxophone in that. I used to go to this one club. They had like a jazz jam night, so you could just like learn a couple tunes, go in and sit with like the house band. And they're all like homies at this point now. They're all like in their like 50s.
Oh yeah.
Just like old dudes in the area that have been playing forever. They kind of like that was where my classroom basically was like just going out and like learning from them. And then I decided kind of when I was a senior in high school, I had never totally considered going into music as like a career, but I don't even know what happened honestly, but I was just like, I want to do this. And I told my parents, and I was like, I don't want to do anything else. Like this is kind of it.
Oh man.
And I considered like, I mean, when you're a kid, you consider a bunch of different jobs, but then I was like,
everything. Yeah.
There was this like blog I found on like early internet kind of territory that was just like about being a working musician, and I found out there's like all these things you can do. Like you can work on a cruise ship, you can work on Broadway, you can make music for commercials. I was like, oh, I just want to do like something. Yeah. Like I don't care what it is, honestly. And my inclination then was to like work in like a Broadway pit and like teach private lessons basically. So I was like, let me just find some like affordable like state schools that like have jazz programs. So I auditioned for SUNY New Paltz and SUNY Purchase. Oh, okay, Purchase. Yeah. So Purchase is where I ended up later, but I didn't get in at first. It's a conservatory. It's fucking nuts.
That's great. I've heard. I mean, I know. I've met so many people who have been or talk about Purchase pretty often. Yeah, like it's one of those schools.
But I didn't get in there at first. So I got into New Paltz though. And it was a small program, like liberal arts college, but it was like a good place to like seriously get into jazz for the first time, outside of like my like community and hometown. It was like on the Metro North, so I could go into the city to see shows. Like I saw a lot of crazy shit then. My professors were all just like retired musicians that like used to work in the city but moved to the Hudson Valley. Yeah, and they just kind of all had this like Zen master energy to it that I like just ate up. Yeah. So like learning from them was really important, and then it just felt like I mean I've always been a little bit obsessive with things, so I was practicing like 3 to 5 hours a day when I was there, just like saxophone shit. Yeah, and I was like I felt like I kind of outgrew it towards the end of my second year or the beginning even. Yeah. But so I tried. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try again. I'm gonna try to go to Purchase again. So I applied. They accepted me, and I had to audition. The process of preparing for that is probably the most I've grown in a couple months ever. And that was very powerful in terms of like just like realizing your own potential. Yeah. Oh, I love those moments. I got all the way. I did a pre-screening audition. Yeah. They were like, I want to have you come in for a live audition. Yeah. I did a live audition. and I was in front of my sax professor that I would end up having, this guy Ralph Alama, who's this like crouchy old fuck from like Pittsburgh that's been working in New York. He like has this like very like bitter like New York energy, but in like a very fun way.
Yeah.
Where like he's all bark and no bite.
An
He's a very,
endearing
very
way,
sweet
yeah,
person
yeah.
at the end, but he can shit talk like nobody I've ever met before.
I love those people.
Very intense dude though.
Yeah.
I knew him before then. I had like corresponded with him a little bit. But basically it was a really competitive year, and they told me like, listen, like there wasn't enough room for you. So I gave him a phone. I was like, hey, could I just like talk to him on the phone a little bit? I just kind of want to know what's a good place for me to go now.
Yeah.
Like I was a little more hopeful for this than I guess I should have been, but
Wow.
you know, I would like some advice, I guess.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, man, give me a call on Tuesday. And I gave him a call. He's like, if I'm being honest, man, your sound was like incredible, but there was just like, it was a competitive year. We have a quota. It's a conservatory. We can only allow so many spots. He's like, but you know what? Like, no one's ever done this before. He's like, no one's hit me up after an audition and asked for a phone call. He's like, I'm going to like get you on the wait list. He's like, he's like, talent is one thing, but like you give a fuck.
Yeah.
And
my
I was like,
God.
all right, like we'll see what
Oh my
happens with
God.
this. And I get a fucking email like a couple weeks later that's like, we're like excited to inform you.
Dude,
You're like,
oh my God, that must have been.
oh man,
Oh
I
my
like
God.
yeah.
To go from like kind of heartbreak to like just somebody acknowledging you, and then to get it.
Man, this is
Bro.
story of my life though. It's like
Dude.
pushing a little bit past what's comfortable,
Yeah.
and like it paying off like
Oh my
ridiculously
God,
for me.
bro.
So yeah, then I was at Purchase for the next 2 years, and it was like, I mean, it was what it was. It was
Yeah.
like a pressure cooker environment kind of thing.
Yeah.
All my professors had also worked at like NYU, Juilliard, Manhattan School of Music, all like the big schools, but it was
Yes.
like you're at a state school. So like
Yeah.
a little more beat up, but like the environment was what it was. I was surrounded
Yeah.
by incredible musicians.
Yeah, that's what it's for.
My live band is all
yeah.
people from Purchase.
Oh wow, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
crazy place to learn and grow. And I loved it. Yeah. It
That's
was
so sick, bro. And then you got into producing. When did that happen?
so that was like an undercurrent of this entire thing.
Yeah.
Was when I was slowly coming back out of my like indie rock phase when I was like 15 or so.
Mhm.
When I was a freshman in college rather. And the original idea for Jerk was for it to be a math rock project.
No.
I had the idea
way.
for the name Jerk before anything else.
No way.
And I made like a little EP that I never put out. Just because I was like, this doesn't feel right. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I'm past this in life.
Yeah.
And the end of my freshman year was when Kendrick Lamar's "To Pimp a Butterfly" came out. It was like
Life changing, dude.
like hearing a record like that. I was like, what? Like people have been making music like this? Like this has been out there this entire time, and I'm just like finding out about it now.
Oh my God.
And that was the beginning of like my hip hop obsession. That summer, I probably listened to more music than I've listened to in my like in like a concentrated period at least than I have in my entire life. Investigating like everything, like all like old school stuff, like early 2000s stuff. I was really into like trap and mumble rap too, and like other everything. I was just hungry for all of it.
So great to hear.
And I started making beats that summer. And I hooked up with these two dudes I went to high school with. I wasn't even like friends with them, but they were like rapping.
Yeah.
And the one had a song that I kind of liked, and I was like, hey, could I like make some beats for you maybe? And he was like, yeah. You were like always really into music. I bet they'd be like, great.
Yeah.
And we started just hanging, you know, smoking too much weed and making like shitty suburban hip hop basically. But I mean, the
suburban
beats,
hip hop has its place too.
the
man.
first beat I made, I'm still like, how the fuck did I do this? Like, it's like, I still look at it. I'm like, this is not bad. This is pretty good.
That's so great.
That I decided never to put any of that stuff out because it was like, you know, white guys saying the N-word type of stuff. And I was like,
got you.
you know,
Here
bless
you.
my
I hear
judgment,
you.
you know?
Yeah, I hear you. Honestly, yeah, 1000% bless your judgment.
But then my sophomore year of college, I was going to this, I was always just into exploring different mediums. So I was going to this like poetry club. I didn't even really write poetry, but I was just like inspired by it. And I met somebody that just transferred there, Pat Dorillis, who was going by Negrostotle, like Aristotle, but like, yeah.
That's
he was like a very profound writer.
That's incredible.
He used to work freelance for Rap Genius, actually, like annotating
What?
lyrics. Very cool
actually
person.
sick.
Lives in Brooklyn now. We kick it once in a while,
Yeah.
but we just like, I think we were just like on the same wavelength for a minute, and we made a song I made like one of my favorite beats I've made to this day. Honestly, it was a sampled beat, so like probably couldn't put it out on Spotify now, but like it was on Bandcamp at the time and like SoundCloud, and I still have the file. But it was taken down like a year or two ago. But it was the first thing I released. It was like produced by Jerk.
That's so sick.
So that was kind of where I started, and I'm like, yeah, like this is gonna be like a hip hop jazz kind of crossover thing. And then I guess it was my junior year. I had been working on just like random stuff, and I had like a bunch of demos on my computer, and I was like, let me just try to make an EP to put out under Jerk. And I had 3 songs that I felt pretty good about, and it became the Pink EP. And I just like I dropped it the same day I made like an Instagram the day I dropped it, basically. And just like my friends were like, this is great, like I didn't know you were into this stuff, like please like make more. We're like very interested. And that I'd never had like that type of reception towards like original works of mine. And then it was like I think there was a lot of snow that year. And there was one snow day that we couldn't even leave our apartment. There was like feet of snow that were blocking the doors, basically.
I love those days.
I had 7 roommates at this apartment. Yeah, it was kind of lit. And we were all like homies, so it was a
party
good
every single day.
Yeah, I mean, but it was like we were just talking about like the stillness of the winter. It was like one of those days where I looked out my window and it was just like a blanket of like perfectly white snow, like dead silent.
Fresh.
And we were just like smoking weed on and off all day, basically. And I was just like half like high, half burnt. And I just sat in my room and I just like started writing, and I wrote 5 beats that day.
Jesus, dude.
And everything I wrote that day became the Yellow EP.
That's insane.
And that was the first one where I was like, there's a sound here. There's like something I'm hearing. That is just coming out when I work on this kind of music. And I was like, I just need to I really need to work on this more. And when the Yellow EP came out, I started playing with the band. And that was even inspiring on a whole new level, because like I'm like being a beat maker, you're like a geek about a lot of shit, basically. You're like, you love bass lines, you love drums.
100%.
And I'm hearing like my like drummer and bass player that I'm like, you've been doing this your entire life, and they're like inspiring me to write new stuff. So we were gigging for like about 6 months or so, like a couple things a month or so. And just enjoying. We weren't making any money. It was costing us more money than it was making it. But it was like
same vibes.
there was just something special in the air. The music wasn't even that crazy. It was like pretty simple stuff compared to what I'm doing now. But there was just an energy there that everyone was like hungry in the band. And that led for me to just write some stuff for live band. That's what ended up being the Green EP. So that was kind of the trilogy that got me started. And then, graduated college, moved to the city, heartache, heartbreak, end up getting a job, kind of a thing. There's not much different from a lot of people. You kind of grow up really fast in that first little bit. I was probably, I was working full time. So when I graduated, my plan was to teach private lessons, basically, for my main thing, and then just like gig and write on the other time. I was working for 3 different private lesson studios. One in Brewster, which is like about 2 hours away from here. One in Westchester, which is about an hour away from here, and one in Long Island, which is an hour. So they're all in different directions. And they were all like dropping the ball on me pretty crazy. I would show up and they'd be like, hey, like 4 of your students canceled. So I'd show up and do $40 worth of work.
Jesus, man.
And I had some savings going into it. I'm like a pretty like financially like nervous person, so I'm always like being very careful about that kind of shit.
I feel that.
But I was like, the numbers aren't gonna add up here. I was playing in like a cover band and I was doing some weddings. But I was miserable, man. To hustle just to like make do on stuff that you don't give a fuck about,
dude,
I'm like, why did I even do music at that point? I was like, what what happened? So I was like, I'm just gonna get a job and quit all this shit. I'll figure out what I really want to do. So I got the assembly job that I was an assembler literally for like minimum wage, but it was 40 hours a week, and I was paying my bills, and I had some money to buy gear and like make investments for myself. And so the Green EP actually came out after I graduated college. So it just took a minute to mix because it was like a full band effort. So it came out in December of 2018. And that's when I was already working full time. I wasn't teaching anymore. I was like hesitant to do like cover band, wedding band gigs. I was like, I'm over it. So the EP's coming out, and I was like, I want to do a release show with the full band. So I booked this show through this like kind of scammy booking company. I don't know if it's Kelly Booking. If you're listening to this and you're trying to book a show, don't fucking do Kelly Booking.
Don't do it.
You'll save yourself a lot of grief.
1000%.
They do this thing called a tally door deal, where it's a night of like there's a bill, but everybody is like independently attached to it. So there's no like curation.
Got you. So it's just random, just everything.
And when people show up, they ask you at the door, who are you here for?
Yeah.
And they put a tally next to that person's name. And if you don't get enough tallies, you have to pay the balance for the guarantee, basically. So they're like, we need like $100, and you only have 6 people show up for $10. You owe them $40.
Jesus.
I think it was like 200.
So wild.
But like people came out. The room was like almost full. But it was one of those things where people came for the band after us, or they came for the band before us, and there were some people there for us. We played it.
Those are tough,
we
man.
fucking killed it. It was a great show. Everyone was like geeking afterwards.
Yeah.
I felt so good about myself. I go up to the door person, fucking security guard comes over. He's like, yeah, you owe like $100.
Oh man.
And then I left that show, and I'm like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. This is painful. Like
That's
this is
terrible.
like what like how do people do this? Like I don't know. I was like crushed in that moment. I was like, I've been working at this for like my life, and this is where I'm at right now. Like, what am I gonna do? But that was the day the Green EP came out.
Wow.
I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just make records.
Yeah.
I'll just do it on my own. I won't play shows. But for now, like, I should promote this thing.
Yeah.
You know, I made it. I'm proud of it. Let me promote it.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a little bit of a tear of sending things out to people through like Submit Hub and like other platforms like that. And this one blogger podcaster, Somewhere Soul in the UK, was like, I love this. This is like what I grew up on.
It's amazing.
Anything you do in the future, please send it to me.
Yeah.
And I got kind of connected to the UK jazz scene a little bit through that. What? And some people started to follow me.
Yeah.
And Deep Matter followed me. And I messaged the person, because we were on kind of like friendly speaking terms at that point. I was like, hey, what's up? I see you follow them. They follow you. Like, what's up with this label? And he was like, oh, I do A&R for them, actually. I sent them your record. They like really enjoy it. I was like, you think I should like hit him up? He's like, yeah. So I just sent him an email, and he's like, fuck yeah. Like, I would love to work with you.
Wow.
And then that's, I mean, the rest is history. I want to say like that. It was kind of something that happened in that moment that was like, you know, you kind of hit your like, I don't want to say all time low, but like my spirit was a little bit crushed.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to teach really. I don't want to play in cover bands. I don't want to do wedding bands. I don't like, this is even becoming painful. And this was like a fun thing for me. So like, what am I going to do? And then I get this sign that like, this label that's like putting out like incredible music that is all like the music that I'm doing.
Yes.
And they're like, yeah, we want to put out your stuff. We're going to push it. Like, we're going to do whatever. It just seemed like it was like divine intervention to some extent, where like it was meant to be.
I mean, you work and you work until like something happens. Like that's kind of how it goes. And it's great to hear, because that like I resonate so much with that story as well, because I can draw a lot of parallels to what's happening now and what's happened in my life as well. And it just makes sense. Yeah. And I'm happy that it worked out so well, and like all these influences and all these things pushed you in this direction, because like it's so cool, because now you're here and we're doing some cool shit, you know, and working on everything that we're doing is like, it's pretty sick, man. Like it's pretty dope.
I mean, out of all of it, I've just learned like kind of push past your comfort zone a little bit. Like, for sure. That's literally like, I don't want to say everything in life has come through that, because I realize that like I came from like a privileged enough situation that like I had access to things, but like a lot of it was just like making a phone call that you don't want to make, sending an email you don't want to send. Like, people are less irritated than you think they are to some extent.
100%.
You gotta like account for yourself.
100%.
That's how my college thing happened. That's how my label happened. Like, it's just good things came out of that.
It's really sick,
and
man.
You know, everything has been for the most part uphill since then.
So great. And there will be some more lows too. Like, it's just the way life goes.
Yeah.
You'll have some moments where you get to that point, and then in that point you have some lows, and then everything's a roller coaster. It kind of works like that way.
But there's some perspective now, so like it's a little bit,
100%.
it's easier to deal with.
You can work on it. Yeah, you can work. So we're gonna go a little bit over time. Only because I really want to ask you these Patreon questions.
Yeah, no worries, man. I mean, I can talk, so
you're good. we'll try to get these, like, we'll do like not speed round. We want you to genuinely answer
Yeah,
the
yeah,
questions.
no, you're
But
fine.
we'll see what happens. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens. So this question's actually from Franny. From Fran, beautiful Fran, who
Yeah.
has I think her music comes out tomorrow. Her
Oh, really?
yeah, her revival performances.
Oh, yeah.
Her live
Okay.
performances come out tomorrow, which is
Sure.
super awesome. Well, actually, no. When this is released, it would have been a month already. So at this point, she already has, thousands of streams. So she asked, when you start, where do you start when you begin like the process? Like when you start constructing a song, what's like one of the first things you gravitate towards? Like how does it come into?
Um, I had a professor that once told me you listen with your ass first, meaning that like rhythm is king.
Wow. Yeah.
So I always start with drums, and
Your
I'm
drum kit is sick. I have it and it's amazing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
thank you for that.
No, yeah, absolutely, man. I didn't know you were making like music at that point. I would have just sent it to you.
No, you're good, bro.
Yeah.
I wanted to support. I have Ableton, and I started
Yeah.
learning recently. And your loops have been saving me. I've been making tracks with them, which is sick. But yeah, continue.
But that's like probably the easiest thing, like abstractly, to just like
Yeah.
construct.
Mhm.
Where I'm just like I was like a hyper kid. I was always like hitting my legs, hitting shit. I'm always feeling different grooves, and I love the level of nuance that are in hip hop drums.
Yes.
Where you bump a kick drum this much more, and it changes the whole thing. So I'm like endlessly inspired. I could put out an album of like 75 drum loops and like be fine with that.
I love it.
It's I could make like 10 a day if I wanted. That's the easiest way to get started.
Yeah.
And from that, it's just my level of experience and my like ear training are kind of filling in things. So I generally kind of just go in like a stream of conscious type of thing where I'm fooling around on the piano, kind of hitting different chords. And there's just something about some chords resonate with some drums.
Yeah.
And that's the best way I could explain it.
Yeah. No, it makes
I
sense.
could go into a theoretical analysis of why that is, but I think it'd be a reduction.
Yeah.
Things just work sometimes, and you got to trust yourself and follow your ear.
Yeah. That's incredible. That's perfect. So what's your favorite part and also the most difficult part about collaborating with other musicians? So like in bands and in, making music and stuff. It's from Anthony Alvarez.
Checking my ego for sure. And I don't even think I have an inflated ego, but I have a sense of what I should be doing and that's not often true to who I am. And being in touch with what other people's intentions are and letting that kind of permeate me a little bit and being like, whatever we make is going to transcend my own ego. So if I can look beyond that for a little bit, I'll make something better in the process.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. We also have from Courtney, you spoke a little bit about this earlier, like briefly you mentioned where Jerk came from. Where specifically, how did that come into your brain, Jerk?
Yeah. So my initials are JRK.
Oh my God.
And like, it's just some like shithead kid called me Jerk on the bus one day when I was growing up. And it just stuck with me.
That's so great.
Yeah. That's all there is to it, really.
Wow. That's perfect. Actually, that's awesome. That's awesome. And she also has a second question, Courtney. Which recording artist, dead or alive, would you want to collaborate with the most?
Oh dear God.
I know this is a big one, but just
no, I think Maurice White,
from
Earth, Wind and Fire.
Oh my God, yeah.
Is a god to me,
dude.
Yeah. The album I Am is a perfect album if there is one. Yeah. And just the amount of, beyond just his musical genius and just the fact that he had a legendary career where he worked with like before Earth, Wind and Fire, he was doing crazy shit. And like iconically crazy shit. He was working with Ramsey Lewis, who was one of the most sampled people in hip hop of all time.
Yeah.
So his drums are everywhere. As a drummer, not even as like the guy that started Earth, Wind and Fire.
Yeah.
Like, so he had like a legendary thing before that. But Earth, Wind and Fire, the concept behind that band just being a band that like shares and brings love into the world. That was his entire thing, is he just wanted people to love each other. And he wanted to use his music to help that. And just that being the undertone of that beautiful fucking music that is, I don't know, there's something, And people just think of it as pop music, which is crazy to me.
It's,
I'm like, musically,
there's so
it's
much more
so
to it.
complex, first
So
of
much
all.
more to it.
But the fact that that was the undertone, that he was just trying to make a difference in
Yeah.
the world and like share love in that way, and like tolerance and respect,
Yeah.
is so inspiring to me to this day. And I feel like we'd make some fat records if we worked together.
Most
So
likely, bro. Hell yeah, that's a
yeah.
great answer. Also, how many instruments do you play?
All right. So saxophone, flute, and clarinet were like my college instruments. Guitar, bass, keys. I play some drums. Not like my strongest one, but I play some drums.
Mhm.
And I've been so I'm in grad school right now.
Yeah.
I'm in like a music ed program.
sick.
So I'm learning like a little bit about brass and strings. I'm probably never gonna be like to the point where I could, and I don't really care. I have a good group of instruments now.
Yes.
So yeah, saxophone, flute, clarinet, guitar, bass, drums, keyboards. That's
Nice.
kind of where I'm.
Sick. Is there an instrument that you want to learn how to play?
Like a lot of flutes, a lot of different kinds of flutes. I want to learn different world music styles and flutes, and not world music is kind of a problematic term. I want to learn. The flute is an instrument that kind of fascinates me. It's like transcended a lot of cultures, and there's all these different takes on it. The first one I want to learn is this like Japanese flute, and you would know it as if you think of that one theme from Naruto. It's like da, 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 da. That's the one. That flute I want to learn first. So that's kind of my next step, basically.
Yeah, that flute is like iconic as hell.
Yeah.
Yo, that'd be. That's gonna be the first song I need you to play.
Yeah, right.
So what's your favorite one to play? These are all questions from Rare.
Yeah.
But yeah.
In a live setting, saxophone is the one I can like stretch on the most.
Nice.
As a writer, keyboards.
Of course, keyboards are just everything. Everything you need.
You create your own world with keyboards.
Beautiful. I'm actually learning a little bit right now.
Yeah.
And I would love to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. For
take
sure.
some classes from you, so we'll talk about that. But yeah, those are all the Patreon questions. And honestly, dude, thank you for being here.
Yeah, this was great.
It's so
very natural conversation.
It's so fascinating to hear about your history. It's so much more eventful and so much more inspiring than I expected. Because I don't know you at all, so I didn't know what to expect at all. So I was like,
yeah,
he's an artist, so I assume a lot of depression and stuff. But like, there's so much more connectedness to your story than most people would have. Like, there's a lot of full circle moments, and there's a lot of triumph and a lot of heartbreak and a lot of just things that I didn't just see coming at all, which is I love about these conversations because I don't like to set expectations, but when they're exceeded, no matter what, like it's just always so fulfilling, and I'm excited to just like learn more about you outside of this as well. And I mean, I'm gonna have you back on the show for sure because we have.
Man, this is the best interview I've ever done. This was the most natural feeling.
Yeah, I'm so glad.
So yeah, keep it up, please.
Thank you. That's
people need to hear more of this kind of stuff.
Yes. And your story is inspiring, man. 1000%. Super inspiring. Do you have any like final statement? Kid with the Dream is coming out in a few days. Beautiful track, insanely beautiful track. It's probably my favorite that we've produced as a group so far. Like anything that Project Feel has been a part of creating, like this is probably one of my favorite things.
And it's got a music video coming up.
The music video is gonna be so.
It's gonna make you feel a certain way,
bro. The music video is going to be, guys, best we've made so far. I'm calling it right now. It's gonna be one of the best music videos you've ever seen. I guarantee it. And dude, I'm excited to see you like release on that one too, man. It's gonna be so inspiring. Thank you for sharing your story.
Absolutely.
Can't wait to share more or hear more. Do you have any like final closing statements for us? Anything you want to plug? Also, anything you just want to say in general? Anything you want to mention to the people? Any emotions you feel?
If you want to find me, you can find me at jerk_sounds on like Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. Jerk on Spotify, Apple Music, all that good stuff. There'll be new music at some point. Don't hold your breath. I'm working on life. Besides that, love yourself, love one another. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I feel you, man. I feel you. Yeah, man. Sweet.
Cool.
Dude, I'm so sorry. It's actually insane how sorry.